3 years ago, my partner and I bought our very first home. It wasn't huge or fancy, but it was ours. The street was quiet, the area felt safe, and our neighbors were kind people. We felt lucky. Life was calm and predictable. Then, about a year and a half later, the house right next door went up for sale. It was bigger than ours, with a driveway, a garage, and even a large bathtub. It felt like an upgrade we couldn't ignore, so we bought it and put our old house up for sale.
After reading letters from buyers, we chose a Polish couple who seemed polite and normal. They only spoke English to us, even though we spoke Dutch. Still, everything seemed fine. We gave them tips about the house and had friendly conversations. Looking back now, that was the calm before everything changed.
Not long after they moved in, strange things began happening. Sometimes at midnight, loud music would blast through the walls. Other times, we heard heavy banging that made no sense. It wasn't every night, but it was enough to make us uncomfortable. It felt like we didn't truly know who was living just a few feet away. One day, the neighbor came home with his car badly damaged on both sides. It looked like he had hit something at high speed. When we asked what happened, his explanation didn't make sense. He said he hit a pole on one side and a trailer on the other. The story felt weak, but we chose to believe him. Then, one evening around 6 p.m., he called us in panic. He said people were outside, turning his security cameras away. We looked, and 2 men were breaking into his house. We called the police immediately, but when they arrived 20 minutes later, the men were gone. Nothing had been stolen. It felt strange. Later, we checked the doorbell footage. Before breaking in, the men stood calmly outside, talking in Polish, discussing which house to enter. It didn't feel random. It felt planned. I told the police it seemed staged, and never heard back from them. A week later, things exploded. My partner called me in pure fear. The neighbor's car had crashed through our front garden and into his own front door. 2 men were loading expensive TVs and speakers into the trunk. They looked like the same men from before. Police arrived in just 7 minutes this time. One of the men claimed to be our neighbor. He used our neighbor's name, but something was wrong. In 9 months, our neighbor had never spoken Dutch. This man spoke it fluently. That's when the chase began. The police caught them after a short pursuit. While reporting damage inside our home, the doorbell rang. It was the real neighbor. His face was swollen and covered in blood. One eye shut. His arm hung at a strange angle. He refused to cooperate with police. Later that night, he came back, trembling. He said he cheated on his wife and claimed she sent people to hurt him. He begged to stay with us. We said no. At 1 a.m., our dog growled. The neighbor was back, standing on our porch. Then he hid behind our cars when a vehicle approached. His wife stepped out. Under the streetlight, she began crying in a deep, painful way. They left together. We didn't see him again for 3 days. When she returned alone, she said she may never see him again. To this day, we still don't know the full truth. And honestly, I don't think we want to. Back in 2017, my family moved into a new house in the suburbs of Montreal. It was a split-level home, which means the floors were slightly staggered instead of being fully upstairs or downstairs. My bedroom was at ground level, right between the main floor and the basement. One wall connected to the garage, and the other had a large window that looked straight into our backyard. That window would later become the reason I couldn't sleep at night. My closet had wide sliding mirror doors, and those mirrors reflected my window perfectly, so no matter how I lay in bed, I could always see my window staring back at me. At the time, my window had vertical plastic blinds and several panels were missing. Even when they were fully closed, there were thin gaps where someone outside could easily look in. One hot summer night,
I left the window slightly open because we didn't have air conditioning. Around midnight, while watching videos on my tablet, I heard a faint shuffling sound outside. I paused my video immediately. The sound stopped. I pressed play again. A few seconds later, the shuffling returned. It felt too real to ignore. I looked toward the window, but I didn't see anything. I told myself it was probably just part of the video I was watching, or maybe an animal in the yard. I tried to relax, but then I heard something else. Breathing. Slow, heavy, close. I turned toward my closet mirror instead of looking directly at the window, and through one of the small blind gaps reflected in the mirror, I thought I saw movement. My heart dropped instantly. I ran upstairs and told my dad. Even though I could tell he didn't fully believe me, he grabbed a flashlight and checked the backyard. He came back a few minutes later and said there was nothing there. He reminded me that we lived in a safe neighborhood and said I was probably scaring myself by watching too many horror videos. I wanted to believe him, so I did. But the sounds didn't stop forever. Every few weeks, always after 11 p.m., I would hear shuffling again. Sometimes it sounded like footsteps, sometimes like someone shifting their weight on the grass. It always stopped during winter when the ground was covered in snow. Then it would return in the spring. That pattern continued for years. I stopped looking at the window completely. I avoided my mirror. Deep down, I was afraid of being proven right.
Then one night in December 2021, during a strong windstorm, something changed. Around 11:30 p.m., I went upstairs to get water and saw my parents sitting in the living room. They looked tense, almost shaken. That alone felt strange, because they were usually asleep by then. Before I could ask more questions, flashing red and blue lights reflected through our front window. A police car was pulling into our driveway. A few minutes later, my dad told me the truth. About 20 minutes earlier, he had stepped outside during the windstorm to check the yard. That's when he saw it. A man standing completely still outside my bedroom window, not moving, not hiding, just standing there and staring inside. When my dad yelled and moved toward him, the man immediately ran and jumped over the back fence like he had done it many times before. In that moment, everything I had experienced over the past few years became real. I had not imagined the sounds. I had not imagined the breathing. Someone had truly been outside my window, watching me sleep, watching me change, watching me live my life. The thought made me feel sick. The police searched the area but couldn't find him. Since my dad hadn't seen his face clearly, there wasn't much they could do. They suggested more cameras and more patrols. We installed them. But one thing still bothered me. When my parents tried to warn the elderly neighbor behind us, she refused to open the door and threatened to call the police on them instead. That reaction still feels wrong to this day. I eventually switched rooms so I wouldn't face the backyard anymore. But even now, years later, I can't look at a ground-level window at night without feeling uneasy. What scares me most isn't just that someone was there. It's that it went on for so long without anyone knowing. And if my dad hadn't stepped outside that night, it might still be happening. When I was 15 years old, my family moved into a larger house in Alberta because we were running out of space in our apartment. The house wasn't perfect. It was older and located in a rougher area, but it was cheap and had potential. My dad renovated the basement so I could have my own room there. It felt exciting at first, like a fresh start. The first strange thing happened on my dad's birthday. We went out to dinner and came home to find our front door wide open. My mom was terrified. My dad grabbed a heavy wrench from the truck and went inside to check. The police searched the house too. Nothing was stolen, but some things had been moved, especially the books on my shelf. It felt small, but unsettling. After that night, I started hearing strange noises in the basement, scratching sounds inside the walls, soft thuds underneath the floor. I told myself it was just old pipes or the house settling. I tried not to think too much about it. Then, one night, around 2 a.m., while playing my Nintendo DS under my blanket, I heard something that froze me completely. It was laughter, clear, quiet laughter coming from inside the wall next to my bed. I held my breath and didn't move for almost 30 minutes. Eventually, I convinced myself I imagined it.
Weeks later, my baby sister started sharing the basement room with me. One night while my parents were out, I was upstairs when I heard heavy footsteps through the baby monitor. Then my sister began crying, and through the static, I heard a faint whisper say, "Shh." Then something crashed. Without thinking clearly, I ran to my parents' room and grabbed my dad's rifle. It was locked and unloaded, but I didn't care. I just wanted something in my hands. I walked slowly down the basement stairs. My heart felt like it was going to explode. When I entered the room, no one was there. But the baby monitor was knocked sideways on the floor. I grabbed my sister and ran upstairs. The police came and searched the house again. They were about to leave when my dad asked them to check behind my bookshelf. The shelf was built into the wall, and I had never thought of it as anything unusual. When they pushed it aside, it opened like a hidden door. Behind it was a small room filled with pipes. On the ground were food wrappers, one of our missing cups, lotion, a switchblade, and a half-eaten apple that still looked fresh. Someone had been living there, inside our house, for who knows how long. The basement window was wide open, and my desk chair was placed underneath it. The police believed whoever was hiding there escaped while they were outside talking to us. They said the person likely wouldn't return now that we knew. A few days later, I opened the hidden space myself and searched it carefully. That's when I found a tiny hole in the wall. When I looked through it, it pointed directly at my bed. Whoever had been in that room could see everything, me sleeping, changing, studying. I'm an adult now, living in my own place, but sometimes at night I still think about that hole in the wall and wonder how long someone was watching me without making a single sound.
If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe my channel. See you on next videos. Till then, goodbye.